The first harvest of the farming year is currently underway in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, with the expected grain shortage, animal feed is expected to hit record prices. So, the crop of grass known as silage will be crucial for the winter feed.
Our Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie has been investigating.
Our country lanes may look tranquil, an ideal place for leisure. But in truth, they're on the factory floor of our food production. Heavy machinery is already gathering the first of this year's crops. And with rising energy costs and changes in subsidies, what happens in farms over the next short while will dictate how our economy will perform. This harvest is vital for the agri-food sector. It is the harvest of the food of our food, the ingredients of our ingredients. It is the primary building blocks of our economy, and this will decide the price of our food within the next 12 months.
It's basically grass, so it is, and it's the feed for the cattle for the winter. So we need to make as good a silage as we can for the winter for our cattle to be able to produce milk, beef, or whatever type of farming you're in that you're using grass, silage.
Adam George is a fifth-generation farmer and explains how the second crop will be more costly.
Once you get the first cut off, you have to put fertiliser onto it and slurry. The fertiliser has more than trebled in prices from what it was this time last year. So it's going to make the likes of our second cut silage very expensive.
In these times where basics like energy and the price of food hold the balance of our budgets, what else can be done to alleviate pressures on our farms?
I think they need to look at the legislation. There's a lot of red tape in place that we have to adhere to that ties our hands. The likes of how much fertiliser we can sow, when we can spread our slurry, how many cattle we can keep for the amount of ground we have. All that legislation's in place. We have to adhere to it, and it restricts us.
Food security is now at the top of every government's list. Predictions of apocalyptic pricing and food availability must prompt action to help farms produce more of our own food. Dougie Beattie, GBNews, County Down.
Well, joining us now is Finlay McIntyre. He's a farmer in Perthshire. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Just explain, what are the different daily pressures to the farming processes you're experiencing now compared to a year ago?
Hello there, it's a pleasure to be with you. It really just is similar to what probably most households in the country are experiencing, is that we've seen a massive increase in the costs of our inputs in terms of energy costs, and indeed, as your report listed there, our fertiliser costs. So this is related back to our feed costs as well, which has put great strains on our supply chains. So the increases have really, we all expected them to come, but they've come far more greater than we had expected.
Could the government give you, if any at all, Finlay?
I think really this is not, I don't think, a national crisis. I think it's probably a global crisis. I think that successive governments, regardless of their party or whatever made them up, have sleptwalked into this, and they've really treated food security with sort of casual in a casual manner. The supply chains are very fragile, and that really we don't have the supplies globally that we would have had even 30, 40, 50 years ago, and there's so many more intricacies in place in this. I think that probably what government needs to do is to start looking at production, and we need to be very mindful of environmental credentials. That's really important, but we need to be looking at what we can do to produce and also increase our biodiversity as well. That's very important to the consumer. In the UK, we've got a really beautiful pastoral landscape, and we're designed to grow beautiful grass to produce beautiful beef and lamb. And I think the more that we can focus on that, the better we'll be.
Saying more land and more grass, that's what's needed, and more farming of that grass.
I don't actually necessarily believe it needs more land. I just think that it needs the land that's already in agricultural production needs to be looked after and shouldn't be constricted any more than what it has been. If we look at, for example, the farming that I'm involved in is hill farming of hill sheep and hill cattle. And if you look at the numbers of hill sheep and hill cattle kept in Scotland, certainly over the last 50 years, the numbers have dropped quite dramatically due to a lot of external pressures on land, such as for forestry, etc. And this has created a sort of a dip in production. I don't actually necessarily believe we need to take any more land into production. I just think we need to look after the land that's in production and, importantly, look after the people that are producing the products that we have. We've got a great workforce in UK agriculture, and they need to be nurtured and fostered and encouraged to go on and feed the country. The most important thing that you can do every day is eat, and I don't think that our politicians really realise this sometimes.
You're one of those people. Do you feel supported, encouraged, nurtured?
I don't really think our politicians engage with the agricultural community in any valuable way at all. And I know that when I say this, there'll be people rolling their eyes and there'll be sort of, you hear the usual sort of stereotypes of subsidy junkie farmers and such like. The reality is that the subsidies delivered to farmers throughout the UK are a consumer subsidy, and they were designed to keep the cost of food down at the level where it was purchased. And every penny that is given in subsidy to UK agriculture generally trickles down throughout the communities that it is delivered to. So I really don't think that there is any political appetite up until now to support agriculture in the UK, and I'm not even very convinced that there is much understanding of the situation now. And I suppose that comes from the fact that we, in a very short space of time, over 2 or 3 decades, have become a very urban-centric nation.
Finlay, thank you so much for talking to us, giving us a little bit of an insight into the day-to-day pressures you're under. Really appreciate your time with us this morning on Breakfast.